We open as Serling describes Maple Street, your typical 50s suburban neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, and the place is just waiting for Andy Griffith to come up the street in order to make hometown America complete. That is, until the sight of a meteor interrupts their afternoon chores. It looks like it's a message from the gods for another virgin sacrifice, Fred. We know the double meaning of the title's monster, the intended image that it is meant to conjure up. One of tentacled things or misshapen creatures or hideous alien forms. Monster comes from the Latin word monstrum, a disruption of the natural. Monsters are terrifying because they are, by their very nature, wrong. By all rights, they should not exist. If they do, it is a sign that something has perverted the natural world, corrupted it, and such a thing is inevitably evil. To be a monster is to be the embodiment of corruption. Or to have a bottomless desire for cookies, that too. Not long after the meteor, everything inexplicably stops working. The lighting, the phones, Ellen's tattoo needle, everything. So Pete the handyman heads off to see if the power is on elsewhere in the neighborhood. They're confused, naturally. It's a clear sky, so it wasn't knocked out by a storm, and it wouldn't explain why the battery-powered radios don't work. The voice of reason is Steve, played by Claude Akins, famous for, I shouldn't have to tell you, playing the villainous gorilla Aldo in Battle for the Planet of the Apes, the fourth sequel to a film substantially written by, of course, Rod Serling. It all comes together. But yeah, Steve figures that there is a perfectly rational explanation. But when he tries to drive downtown, his car just moans like people who have seen Battle for the Planet of the Apes. So with no choice, he and Charlie plan to walk downtown.
You better not.
Why not?
They don't want you to.
Who doesn't want us to?
My master, the god of hair gel. Tommy insists that all the science fiction stories he's read about creatures from outer space say that aliens won't want them to leave. You don't want to piss off somebody who's got a semi-automatic anal probe. But no one wants to think that it could be aliens.
Likely as not, that's the cause of the power failure and all the rest of it. Meteors can do crazy things like sunspots.
Rock music. Things get worse then when Tommy mentions that within one of the stories, one of the families was actually aliens in disguise, ones who'd arrived ahead of time to pave the way. People nervously refuse to believe such a thing, of course, but things are tense, not helped by Les, who suffers from a condition that makes him strike a pose like he's Superman. Suddenly, Les' car starts when he's nowhere near it, and as they all stare at this odd thing, they start to think of all the ways that Les is an odd person, like how he gets stronger in the presence of our yellow sun, for instance. Steve has to rein them in because they practically form a mob to go ask him what gives, but he has no answers.
I just don't understand it. I tried to start it, wouldn't start.
They're not buying that, though. His car starts and stops remotely. He never even paid for that feature. The word monstrum in Latin is itself derived from the Latin word moneo, to warn. And right now, this idea that some of them aren't human is feeling less like nonsense and more like a warning. Because the world has been disrupted in an inexplicable way, and that only leaves the unnatural by way of explanation. Something evil. In days gone past, it would have been witches or demons and the like, but this is an age of science. It might just be that evil comes from the stars now. So the crowd starts getting really antsy, and he gets defensive.
Wait a minute now. Just keep your distance, all of you. Okay, so I've got a car that starts by itself. Well, it's a freak thing, I admit it, but what's it make me, a criminal or something?
This must be the work of Lex Luthor. The car keeps messing with Les. Damn it, that's what I get for buying one of those Japanese cars. And someone points out Les isn't just a guy with a weird car, he's weird himself. She's seen him in the wee hours of the morning looking up at the night sky, and everyone wants to know why he'd be doing that. Nobody points out that she only knows this because she stays up late and goes outside sometimes too. He does it, and he has Christine over there, so that makes it odd behavior. And the fact that it's looking at the sky like he was waiting for something, well, even Steve seems nervous now. When night falls, everyone is watching him for the slightest little sign of odd behavior. Look at that, that's 1%. Have you ever seen anyone who drinks 1%? He's up to something. Charlie's been getting his drink on too, so when his wife tries to convince him what he's doing is wrong, he insists that when things are messed up like this, you can't give a man the benefit of the doubt, or the next thing you know, it's aliens, or commies, or alien commies. Steve tries to talk to the naturally defensive Les, while Charlie drunkenly rails against Steve now. Seems he's been building a radio in his basement, and Steve is annoyed at this continued idiocy and suspicion.
Now, how about a firing squad at dawn, Charlie, to get rid of all the suspects, narrow them down for you, make it easier? Huh? Right, Don?
Well, there's no need getting so upset, Steve. It's just...
I was just saying you might be an alien come to eat our brains. Don't take it personally. Charlie takes this completely in stride because, after all, Steve's the one who has been most dismissive of the idea of aliens. That's just the kind of thing an alien would do. So Steve verbally bitch slaps him and a lot of them over this.
And you're with them, too, all of you. You're all standing out here, all set to crucify somebody. You're all set to find a scapegoat. You're all desperate to point some kind of a finger at a neighbor.
What's funny is that we picture the Hicks for centuries past, throwing someone out of the village because a cow's milk has gone sour, or accusing a woman of witchcraft because suddenly the well dried up. But what we're seeing is the same kind of thing, just in the modern age. Because those people were facing the unexplained, and looked for something to blame for the evil, and the easiest thing to blame is a person who doesn't quite belong. And no matter what the age, no matter how rational and educated, that ultimately self-destructive instinct lives on even as time marches on. Speaking of which, the sound of footsteps approaches, and every pair of pants on the street are crapped at once. Even Steve seems to believe Tommy, who insists it's the monster, because when a shotgun is offered, he dismisses it. Not because they don't know what's coming, but because if it is a monster from outer space, what good is a shotgun? A demon, that's what you use a shotgun on. So Charlie yanks the gun away and fires, and the monster is revealed Slender Man. Actually, no, it's just Pete, who went to see if the power was out elsewhere. Guess we'll never know now, Dick. Charlie's naturally a bit disturbed that he accidentally killed his neighbor, plus it'll look crass if he goes to get his electric saw back now. Well, Sterling is not above kicking a man while he's down, so as Charlie tries to cope with the whole murder thing, the lights come on in his house. Now the mob's turned against him. He was quick to kill Pete, who could have been coming to warn them, and he's been quick to accuse everyone else, keeping suspicion off himself. Okay, I know how this looks, but just because my power is on doesn't mean I'm an alien.
Sorry about that, Charlie. Had a bit of a mix-up. Gorblatt has restored your power. Long live the Overlord. May his domed head never lose its green sheen. End transmission.
That can mean anything. Charlie, in desperation, now turns on Tommy, saying he's really the one to blame. And as one, the crowd completely loses it, convinced that Tommy or others are responsible as power comes on all over the street seemingly at random. And soon it's followed by violence and mayhem unrivaled since the World Cup. And all the while, there are real aliens who watch this play out and say that this pattern always repeats itself. After a while, everyone just loses it and attacks each other, and that's the way that they'll destroy us, by letting us destroy each other. That way they don't risk getting punched in the face by Will Smith. Rod Serling famously tried to comment on racism in Noon on Doomsday, which was heavily diluted to appease networks and sponsors. Science fiction allegory was a way around that, which is what helped motivate him to create the Twilight Zone. In this case, Serling was looking to take on McCarthyism and said, I found that it was all right to have Martians say things that Democrats and Republicans couldn't. This episode was filmed on the MGM backlot on a set known as New England Street, though hereafter often referred to as Maple Street thanks to this episode. To keep costs down, there was reuse of props and footage from Forbidden Planet for the aliens, even the flying saucer at the end. Flying off is just the footage shown upside down. What was fascinating about the approach of Peter to the crowd was the director's very intentional decision to not show him as simply a shadow. No, we very clearly know as they consider shooting, this is not an alien, it's a man. Before the shot is fired, we see the hammer swinging in the leg loop where it had been when Pete left to check the other street. Admittedly, some time had passed. This time of year suggests it's probably been about 5 hours, but there's all sorts of reasons why it could have been that long. But we'll never know because now he's dead, killed by terrified people. And the way it was framed, we knew they were talking about killing an innocent man in their terror. The word momeo, remember from before, can be traced back still further, and from there still further. The end point of monster can be traced all the way back to the word mens, mind. How appropriate then that the birth of the monster, both literally and etymologically, is in the mind of man. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is one of Serling's most famous works and speaks of one of his common concerns, man's tendency towards self-destruction. In Time Enough at Last, it was when we used our technology. This time it was because we couldn't use our technology, but the same concern applies. If we can see monsters in our neighbors, it's no wonder we can see them in those who are different. Serling's closing speech makes his point clear about how dangerous prejudice is, and it's so timeless. I read the script as part of my English literature in high school, and I know I'm not alone there. It shows how little things can make people turn against one another. And what's worse is, once you have a mob, not only is the fear or anger contagious, but also the fear of becoming the center of the mob's attention. So people become afraid to speak up even when it's the reasonable thing to do. That's why the work lacks the intimacy that Time Enough at Last had, because it isn't about the individual. It's about how the individual surrenders to the mob. And that organism, the sum of so many humans, is something that has the destructive impulse of an animal. It is only the aliens, but not the monster, that is limited solely to the Twilight Zone.